My name is Basil Kvale. Pretend the V is the W, and you drag it out and get Kvale.
When and where were you born?
It's Conger, Minnesota, supposedly, but there's a funny thing about this. Conger, Minnesota, and Iowa were half and half as far as the road is concerned.
When did you enlist?
When I was 17 years old.
What year was that?
Oh, God. "17 years old. I tried to get in with the British to fly airplanes and do the gunnering on it, but they said I was too young. And they said, come on back again. And I said, don't pull that crap on me. I said, I'm going to go and get into the Marine Corps. And that's exactly what I did. When I was 17 years old, I lied my way a little bit as to how old I was, and I was in the Marines.
It says on your bio that you enlisted in 1943.
Yeah?
So what made you want to enlist in the military?
What did I want? I wanted them to get to the point of where we could beat the Japanese down to the point of where they wanted to go for peace. Well, for one thing, I was 2 years in Guadalcanal. And after that, why, we got to Peleliu, which was Japanese also. And I said, if we get an aircraft carrier down here in 2 days, I've got about 80 cannons that are kind of keeping the Japanese where they are. And I said, if we get the aircraft carrier, I said, well, there will be Corsair airplanes and F-4Fs. And I said, they ain't going to want to come back anymore and buy for peace. And I said, we will organize the things so they could do coordination with the fire direction center in where we were. And it actually turned out that way. We had about 16 cannons, and the Japanese, I don't think, had anywhere near that. And I had a little argument with this guy that was directing the artillery fire up in the air. So I said, if you shut up and let me do the coordination with the fire direction system, I said, we can get the aircraft carrier down there. And I said, it's going to be the same Japanese, but I said, those guys are going to be awful close to the ground when they got down here. And it was that way. I would say that the Japanese probably had a mile and a half or two or more of troops there, and the aircraft carrier and about 80 or 90 cannons that I had, it was nothing but dead guys. And shortly after that, I told the aircraft here. If we work this light, I said I think the Japanese are going to pledge for peace. And that's exactly what happened.
So, when did you arrive in Korea?
Huh?
When did you arrive in Korea?
In Korea? Well, it was Guadalcanal, Okinawa. Peleliu is pretty close to Korea, and that was actually, as far as the battles with the Japanese, was very, very bitter fighting, but we did win out with them. And when we got the aircraft carrier down there with as many aircraft that they had, that was the end of the war between Japan and the United States.
So, were you still in the military when the Korean War broke out?
Huh?
Were you still in the military when the Korean War broke out?
Oh, yeah.
So where were you in Korea?
We were in a different kind of situation. There was a outfit that was an amphibious corps, and they were going to shoot us up to a place that was going to set things up in Korea. And they treated us up to Uijeongbu, way up in the north of the United States. And that's where the main part of the battle was fought. We were in the Taebaek Mountains, and the B-29s and 28s just tried to destroy that area. And it was hard to do because the weather at that time was 40 degrees below, and after they got done with their stuff, we moved to a different part, and the Japanese, it was like I was looking at them just sitting down there and watching, and got the aircraft doing that, and the 80 or 90 guns that I had, the Chinese were nothing, or the Japanese were nothing as far as doing good. There was one thing that they did want. They wanted a 50 caliber gun, and they were trying to get up to the top of the thing. There was a different thing between them and us. They were down in the valley, and we were up in the Taebaek Mountains looking down at them from 3,000 to 4,000 feet down. And the Japanese were trying to get up to the place where we were in the Taebaek Mountains. And there was a general by the name of Chinese Peng, and we captured one little guy from that outfit who had been in World War I, where the stuff was from there. The Chinese, the Japanese got the stuff that was in with the United States Army. And the 29s bombed it first for about 3-4 days, trying to destroy the ones. And the Marines had a captain that was going to direct the air things as far as the battle is concerned. And he said I think he broke and just wanted to have me do with the thing as it was. And he says, I can verbalize it, he says, and you're going to have to tell me as to what you want. So that's what I did. I attacked them from 4 different directions. And that was bad business for them, because I could sit there with 80 cannons, and they were down there in a 3,000 foot difference between where I was and they were. And it was just total disaster. And it wasn't until about a month and a half later that they moved their place away, and to finally figure it out, I went down there, and they had their most of their troops there had a very big hospital down there, and they bugged out on that, and that kind of cost them a little bit. So that got into the battle after that. I had them coming in from 4 different ways, and we had ammunition that is barrier that cannon shells opened up at about less than 400 hard places for the airplanes. But the admiral didn't know whether he wanted to do that. He wanted to use his big cannon. And I said, well, if you'll allow me to, or you do it, I said, try to get aircraft carriers in 2 days. And I said, I guarantee you that we'll knock the Japanese down to the point of where they want to sue for peace. And that's exactly what happened. I had them pin in with our fire direction area with the airplanes, and I'd leave the cannons down there trying to keep them down, and the F-4s were, and the Corsairs, I would say were probably 50 feet off the ground when they started getting onto the Japanese from a area where there were at least a mile and a half or 2 miles of Japanese down there. And it was so close that when I was sitting there and directing the other stuff, the shells coming out of the airplane was so warm that it got down my jacket and nice and hot, burned my neck in there. So that was about the end of the whole thing, because they got beaten to pieces.
So back to Korea, what was your date of departure from Korea, or approximately?
Korea? Oh, that was awful close to the 40s.
From Korea?
From Korea, yeah. Korea we were up in what they call the frozen chosen, where the temperature was 40 degrees below, and we had a good timing to start out with. Now, there was a lieutenant that was supposed to be above me, and the guy for the Air Force was also, and I coordinated with the FDC, which is called fire direction stuff. I got the airplanes down to a lower level, and it was just pure murder, if you want to put it that way, because it's just general ping for China or Japan. He said that I killed too many troops of his, and when it was all over with, I went down to what did it, and it was a great big underground hospital that was treating the people that were still alive. That was pretty much the way it ended up with. And it wasn't me that guaranteed the thing. I was just directing the thing. Because the colonel that was telling them that Basil was going to direct all of the fire on where the Japanese were